Hello.
Hello,
Can you introduce yourself, please?
my name is Tuấn and I'm currently 12 years old. I am a student in class Discover 4 into a CC Mola, and I'm currently learning in Archimedes Academy.
Very nice. Okay. So we're going to do some Ielts speaking practice, and we've got a couple of questions I'm going to ask you. First of all, the topic we're going to discuss is about being patient. Okay. So can you give me some examples of what you can do while you're, I suppose, waiting for a bus or a train? What can you do to occupy yourself?
Well, for me, while I'm waiting for a bus or a train, I would use my phone to surf the internet. But sometimes I don't have a phone or there isn't any signal, so I would just like daydream and think about the things I would be doing after I got on the bus and arrived at my destination.
Excellent. Okay. Interesting. And can you explain a time that you've ever perhaps lost patience doing something, gotten a bit frustrated perhaps?
There has been once that I was doing some team building with my friends at Halong for a holiday, and we were doing this activity it's a activity with like piñata, and the team who is the fastest will get all the candies. So my team was very slow and I was the next person to get on, and I lost my patience and I just pushed the person in front of me and run off and hit the piñata.
Well, I hope you got the candy.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you describe yourself as generally a patient person?
No, I would not describe myself as a patient person.
Why is that?
Because I don't get impatient a lot because I am fast, not because I'm impatient. I'm patient, and that means when I'm doing something slow because of someone else, I get very impatient and get very angry.
So you tend to get more impatient with other people rather than yourself?
Yes, I would blame it on other people.
I can imagine so. And how do you feel about people in your country as like the general population? Are they generally patient people or quite impatient? Can you give me some examples as well?
I would say that they are quite patient people. Because Vietnam is a country of hardworking and patience, because their ancestors are born in rice field and are made to be farmer, which is a job that requires a lot of patience to wait for the wheat to grow and harvest. And that's why I think the patience has gone into the people's blood, and the people are generally really patient and when working.
Good, great. Very interesting answer. So we're going to take a look at part 2. Okay? What we're going to be focusing on is an interesting old object. So I'm going to get you to take a look at this. You're going to have 1 minute to prepare, and then I want you to describe a little bit about the object that you've chosen. Okay, so it can be an old and interesting object that your family has. You should say what it is, where it came from, how long it's been in your family, and explain why your family thinks this object is interesting. Okay, so 1 minute to prepare. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'd like you to spend about 2 minutes just discussing the object, please.
My family living room has a big grandfather clock that is used to see the time. It is in the left corner of the room, and it is brown, tall, and very dusty because it doesn't get cleaned often. My grandpa said it came from his dad, which he won from a guessing competition. It was a guess the price competition, and the reward was a big grandfather clock. He said it used to be very beautiful and very polished and would give off a reflection when he looked at it. And the interesting thing about the clock is that whenever a 50-minute passes, they would ring a ding ding for the amount of time that has passed. Like for example, 50 minutes it would be 1, 30 minutes it would be 2, 45 minutes would be 3, and an hour would end off with a huge ring. And for each hour of the day, there are 24 hours. So each hour will be represented by a ring, and you don't really need to look at the clock to know the time. And that's the interesting thing. It has been really old, and the sound is not as good as before, but it is still a unique antique that we have in the house.
Oh, that sounds really interesting, actually. Very good. Absolutely fantastic. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about history and what kind of value it brings. So, what's your opinion on antiques? Why do you think people really like to hang on to things from the past?
Well, there are types of people. Different people may differ the results. For example, there are people who are really interested in antiques because they want to know what the people in the past culture is like. For example, you can look at a vase from Vietnam and you can see what the people used to believe in, what gods, what animal they think was the god that the country has. And there are another type of people, the people that are investing. They keep the antique because they believe that this antique is very old and is very popular and important to history. And when it gets older, it will be sold for a lot of money.
Okay, so a lot of people place value on historic objects, but what about historic buildings? Do you think that there's a lot of importance to be held in historic buildings as well, and the architecture that goes into it?
Yes, there are a lot of historic buildings that get a lot of attention. For example, the pyramids. The pyramids are thousands of years old, and it is still a mystery because of the labyrinth inside of it, and most importantly, how they built it. The scientists still don't know how the ancient Egyptians created the pyramids without machines like cranes to lift up the large bricks on the pyramid. And some conspiracies even says that the ancient Egyptians has alien contacted up there.
Okay, well, maybe. I've also heard theories about there being, large slopes, and they're using water, so there's like a certain hydrophobicness to the sand that makes it a little bit less friction, so they can be pulled up. But you know, I also love that area as well. I think it's a very good. So obviously you think that, you know, historic buildings are important, but do you think they are more important or better than modern structures?
No, I don't think so. Historical buildings are obviously very old, which makes them very weak, and most historical buildings don't get much cleaning either, and that just goes against the point of a building. A building can be a place where you work in, where you live in, where you sleep in, which needs to be clean and safe, so you can go in there without the thought of the buildings just collapsing on you.
So yeah, I mean, I would partially agree with you. I think, you know, modern structures have a lot more function than some of the older structures, but it's also important for our history, you know. So what are some other places that we can, you know, study and learn about history, especially in Hanoi specifically?
There.
Like, for example, do you know of any interesting or important museums nearby?
Yes, there are. I have once visited the National Museum of Ethnic Groups once for a group project. It is a museum which has many different artifacts of many ethnic groups across the country, and there are also a lot of interesting information on the wall saying different things about ethnic groups.
So, as far as different means to gain knowledge about these specific ethnic groups or, you know, certain events that happened in our past, do you think that museums would be the best place to obtain this knowledge, or do you think there are, you know, more superior ways to gain knowledge of these subjects?
Yes, there are obviously more superior ways. For example, the books have been and always been the most superior technique to obtain knowledge. You can just go to a library and find a book about ethnic groups without having to pay a ticket to go to a museum. And with the new technology, it is even easier. You go home, order a book, or just straight up look up for a book online to read.
Okay, excellent. So, you know, obviously I feel museums are quite important because you've got a physical structure to go to. It's, you know, you can physically see the objects rather than just look at pictures online. But maybe not a lot of people feel that way. Not a lot of people are going to museums, at least as much as people used to go there. What are some ways do you think that museums could attract more customers and bring more attention to the history that they cater for?
They could obviously add an easier way for people to go around the museum, because most people nowadays are lazy and just want to stay at home and learn about stuff. So it would be a lot better if you both get to know the object in real life, and you get to you don't have to walk around the huge museum, and the museum can also add more human content. So, for example, you could add a video about the object, so people could watch it while they see the object themselves. They get an explanation about the object instead of just looking at a board saying everything about the object, which is very boring.
So you're thinking like bringing more multimedia in to gain people's interest?
Yes.
I've always thought about museums providing virtual tours that they could go through on a website as well, in case there's something specific you want to look at, which I thought was a good idea. But no, I really love that, kind of bring people in and encourage them to mix the multimedia with the object itself. That's a great idea. Okay, excellent. I think we're going to finish up there. You did very well. Thank you so much for coming in.